Today, my dramatic reading is on a book I read called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling. The scene I'm going to read for you is in Act 4, Scene 10. Albus says, "Do you know what I'm really good at?" Harry says, "There's plenty you're good at, Albus." Albus says, "Polyjuicing, and I think Bathilda Bagshot may have all the ingredients for polyjuice in her basement. We can polyjuice into Voldemort and bring her to us." Ron says, "To use polyjuice, you need a bit of someone. We don't have a bit of Voldemort." Hermione then says, "But I like the concept, a pretend mouse for her cat." Harry says, "How close can we get through transfiguration? We know what he looks like. We've got some excellent wizards and witches here." Ginny says, "You want to transfigure into Voldemort?" Albus says, "It's the only way." Hermione says, "It is, isn't it?" Ron steps forward bravely and then says, "Then I think I should be him. I mean, it won't be exactly nice being Voldemort, but without wishing to blow my own trumpet, I am probably the most chilled out of all of us, and so maybe transfiguring into him, into the Dark Lord, will do less damage to me than any of you, more intense people." Harry steps away, introspective. Hermione says, "Who are you calling intense?" Draco then says, "I'd also like to volunteer. I think being Voldemort requires precision, no offense, Ron, and a knowledge of dark magic," and Hermione interrupts, saying, "And I'd like to volunteer too. As Minister for Magic, I think it's my responsibility and right." Scorpius says, "Maybe we should draw lots." Draco interrupts, saying, "You're not volunteering, Scorpius." Albus says, "Actually," Ginny interrupts, saying, No way. I think you're all mad. I know what that voice is like inside your head. I won't have it in mine again." Harry interrupts and says, "And anyway, it has to be me." Everyone turns to Harry. Draco says, "What?" Harry says, "For this plan to work, she has to believe it's him without hesitation. She'll use Parseltongue, and I knew there was a reason why I still have that ability. But more than that, I know what it is to feel like him. I know what it is to be him. It has to be me." Ron says, "Rubbish. Beautifully put, but beautiful rubbish." "No way are you going to," Hermione interrupts and says, "I'm afraid you're right, my old friend." Ron says, "Hermione, you're wrong. Voldemort is not something to be. Harry shouldn't." Then Ginny interrupts and says, "And I hate to agree with my brother, but..." Ron interrupts and says, "He could get stuck as Voldemort forever." Hermione says, "Your concerns are valid, but..." Harry says, "Hang on, Hermione. Ginny and Harry make eye contact. "I won't do it if you don't want me to, but it feels like the only way to me. Am I wrong?" Ginny thinks a moment and then softly nods. Harry's face hardens. Ginny says, "You're right." Harry says, "Then let's do this." Draco says, "Don't we need to discuss the route you're taking?" Harry interrupts and says, "She's watching for him. She'll come to me." Draco says, "And then what? When she's with you, may I remind you this is a very powerful witch?" Ron says, "Easy. He gets her in here. We zap her together." Draco says, "Zap her?" Hermione looks around the room, then says, "We'll hide behind these doors. If you can get her to this point, Harry," she indicates the point where the light from the rose window hits the floor, "then we come out and make sure she has no chance to escape." Ron, then with a look to Draco, says, "And then we'll zap her." Hermione says, "Harry, last chance. Are you sure you can do this?" Harry says, "Yes, I can do this." Draco says, "No, there's too many what-ifs, too many things that can go wrong. The transfiguration cannot hold. She could see through it. If she escapes us now, there's no telling the damage she can do. We need time to properly plan to..." Albus interrupts, saying, "Draco, trust my dad. He won't let us down." Harry looks at Albus, completely moved by this. Hermione says, "Wands." Everyone withdraws their wands while Harry clasps his. There's a light that builds, that overwhelms. The transfiguration is slow and monstrous, and the form of Voldemort emerges from Harry, and it's horrendous. He turns. He looks around at his friends and family. They look back, aghast. Ron says, "Bloody hell." Harry, as Voldemort, says, "It worked then?" Ginny, with a grave voice, says, "Yes, it worked." I feel that this scene is so important to the novel because it's a critical time where Harry and Albus, along with the others, need to trick Voldemort's daughter Delphi into coming out of her hiding spot. This is so they can kill off what's left of Voldemort. This scene drew me in and made my imagination run wild by thinking what the world would be like if polyjuice potions were real. If any of you have an imagination like mine, I recommend you read this book.